Someone tagged me in the parent group chat out of the blue. Leo's dad. I noticed the lunches you pack for your son look pretty fancy. Starting tomorrow, make an extra portion for my daughter, too. I'm not asking for a handout. I'll give you $10 a day. By the end of the month, you'll actually be making a nice little profit. I stared at the screen feeling nothing but pure disbelief. My son is an extremely picky eater with severe allergies. Every ingredient I use is flown in from specific organic farms across the country. A single meal cost me over $500 to prepare. And now someone wanted to buy it for $10. I didn't hesitate. I typed a simple reply in the group. No. I didn't expect my son to come home crying from kindergarten. The next day, he told me a classmate had snatched his lunchbox, and the teacher had called him selfish for not sharing. Fine. If they want to play dirty, I'll show them what happens when they cross the wrong man. I watched the messages flooding the group chat and almost laughed from spite. The person messaging me had a profile picture of himself with his daughter. His display name was Paisley's dad. Seeing that I hadn't replied immediately, he sent several more messages in a row. Leo's dad, are you there? My Paisley hasn't had much of an appetite lately. She's really taking a liking to Leo's food. It's not like it's extra work. You're already cooking for your son, so making another portion is easy.
$10 a day is a lot.
You can get a fast food meal for that price. I know being a single dad is tough, so just look at this as a little extra grocery money. The condescending tone of his messages made my skin crawl. I have no idea where he got the idea that I was a struggling single dad. I do pick up my son alone, and I tend to dress in casual, comfortable clothes. He must have mistaken my low-key lifestyle for weakness. My son Leo was born with life-threatening allergies to many common ingredients. His digestive system is incredibly fragile, so I handle every aspect of his diet myself. His beef is a 5-grade organic Wagyu, and his vegetables are heirloom varieties grown without any chemicals. $10. That wouldn't even cover the cost of the eco-friendly container. I put the food in. I didn't want to waste my breath, so I typed a quick response. I'm busy and my son's meals are very expensive. $10 won't cover it. I thought a direct rejection would be the end of it. Instead, he sent a long voice note to the entire group. Oh, come on. Leo's dad. We're all parents in the same class. What happened to helping each other out? It's just a few pieces of meat and some greens. How expensive can it be? You act like you're serving him gold on a plate. You should raise a son with grit. But a girl needs to be pampered. My Paisley is a princess and she's growing. Why are you being so difficult? My blood started to boil as I listened to his ridiculous rant. I was about to go off on him when the homeroom teacher, Miss Miller, jumped in. Leo's dad, Paisley's father, is only thinking about the children. Our school encourages the spirit of sharing. Since Paisley likes Leo's food, perhaps you could put in a little extra effort. It would help the children bond in it. Seeing the teacher take his side made my face turn cold. I had just moved Leo to this high-end bilingual kindergarten, thinking the environment would be better. I didn't realize the staff would be just as classless. I tossed my phone aside and ignored the rest of the notifications. They could say whatever they wanted. There was no way in hell I was cooking for that brat. The next afternoon, I went to pick up Leo from school. As I approached the classroom, I saw him standing alone in a corner. His eyes were red and his face was streaked with tears. My heart twisted painfully, ran over and pulled him into my arms. Leo, what happened?
Who hurt you?
Leo saw me and let out a sob, clutching my shirt with his tiny hands. Daddy, I'm hungry. Paisley took my food. My head began to throb with a sudden sharp anger. I prepare exactly enough food for Leo's needs. If he didn't eat lunch, he had been starving for the entire day. More importantly, with his condition, missing a meal could lead to low blood sugar or stomach cramps. I suppressed my rage and turned to find Miss Miller. He was laughing with a few other parents, but her smile vanished the moment she saw me. Leo's dad, you're here. I actually needed to have a word with you. Leo was very difficult during lunch today. Paisley just wanted to try a bit of his food, but he refused to let her have any. He even made her cry. I've already scolded Leo for his behavior. You should teach him at home that being selfish isn't a good trait. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My son's lunch was stolen, and somehow he was the one in the wrong. Miss Miller, that lunch belonged to my son. Why should he be forced to give it away? Is this how you teach your students? My voice was loud, enough to make the surrounding parents turn their heads. Miss Miller looked embarrassed, and her tone sharpened. How can you speak to me like that? It's normal for kids to share food. Besides, Paisley's dad already talked to you yesterday. Even if you didn't want to make an extra portion, what's the harm in her having a few bites? Do you have no sense of community at all? I was shaking with fury as I pointed a finger at her. Don't talk to me about community. My son's meals are custom made to prevent an allergic reaction. You let Paisley steal his food and then call him selfish? I'm telling you now, this isn't over. I picked up Leo and walked out without another word. Back home, I made him a fresh meal. Watching him eat like he hadn't seen food in years made tears sting my eyes. I opened the group chat and tagged both Paisley's dad and Miss Miller. I want an explanation for what happened at lunch today. Since when is stealing okay? I'll be at the school tomorrow morning. If my son doesn't get an apology, I'm not letting this go. A second later, Paisley's dad replied, oh, so the villain is playing the victim now. My Paisley, eating your kid's food is a compliment to you. Don't be so ungrateful. See you tomorrow. Then you think I'm scared of you? The group chat was chaotic that night. After those arrogant messages, Marcus started rallying the other parents against me. Let's be real, everyone. This guy is a single dad who probably couldn't keep his wife. And he has a nasty temper to match. Paisley, felt sorry for his kid and tried to be friendly by sharing his food. Instead of being thankful he's in here screaming at everyone. A kid from a broken home like that isn't going to be mentally healthy. You should all keep your kids away from Leo before he ruins them. A few parents who were close to Marcus immediately chimed in. Exactly. He's always acting so superior. Do you think his kid eats gold or something? Kids from single-parent homes are always selfish. Miss Miller was right to scold him. Marcus, don't let him get to you. Your wife is a high-level executive at a top firm. You don't need to waste your time on lowlives like him. I watched the disgusting comments scroll by, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Low-life executive wife. Is that where you get the confidence to steal from a child? Since you think theft is justified, let's settle this in person tomorrow. We'll see who really doesn't belong in this school. I logged out of the app immediately. Anger was burning in my chest, but I forced myself to be calm. Marcus Thorne thought he could rule the school. Just because his wife had a fancy title. He even had the teacher in his pocket. Did he really think his little bit of influence made him untouchable? I walked onto the balcony and called my assistant. Get me the access codes for the school's security cameras. And look up a parent named Marcus Thorne. I want to know everything about his wife's background. Give me every detail. I want to know exactly what cards they're holding. Took a deep breath as I hung up. I had always kept a low profile to give Leo a normal, quiet life. I even sent my driver to the parent-teacher meetings. I never thought my humility would be seen as an invitation for these people to step on me. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. They wouldn't survive. The next morning, I arrived at the school right on time with Leo. I didn't go to the classroom. I headed straight for the principal's office. I wanted the principal to pull the footage and see the truth for himself. But halfway there, Leo tugged on my hand. Daddy, I left my sketchbook in the classroom. Can I go get it real quick? I nodded and let him go, waiting for him in the hallway. Less than 2 minutes later, a sharp, terrified scream came from the classroom. My heart nearly stopped. I sprinted toward the door. When I reached it, the scene inside made my vision turn red. Leo was huddled on the floor, his face pale and soaked with tears. That chubby girl, Paisley, was ripping Leo's sketchbook to shreds, making ugly faces at him as she destroyed his drawings. Her father, Marcus Thorne, was standing over Leo. He was holding a piece of dry, cheap, mass-produced bread and trying to shove it into Leo's mouth. Eat it. You love being so protective of your food, don't you? I'll make sure you get your fill today. My Paisley wanting your stuff is a blessing. How dare you? Try to hide it from her. Leo was struggling and coughing. The dry breadcrumbs were choking him, turning his face a dangerous shade of purple. When Marcus saw Leo resisting, he raised his foot and slammed his heavy leather boot down onto Leo's small hand. Leo let out a gut-wrenching cry. In that instant, every ounce of my restraint snapped. My logic was replaced by a cold, murderous rage. I charged in like a storm, kicking a desk out of the way. With a deafening crash, I grabbed Marcus by the collar, slammed him against the wall, and delivered a slap so hard it echoed through the room. Slap. I used every bit of my strength. Marcus was dazed instantly, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. I didn't stop. I swung again, hitting the other side of his face. You laid a hand on my son. I'll kill you, I roared, my eyes probably looking like those of a demon. Marcus finally snapped out of his shock, started screaming like a cornered rat, lunging at me. You bastard. You dare hit me. Do you have any idea who my wife is? He grabbed a glass vase from a nearby table and hurled it at me. I dodged it, and the glass shattered against the wall. Marcus picked up a jagged shard of glass and pointed it at me. his eyes full of venom. My wife is Scarlett Thorne, the regional director at Apex Investments. You're dead. I'll make sure you and your Brad are run out of the city. Just then, Miss Miller and a group of security guards burst into the room. The teacher didn't even look at the situation before she started screaming at me. Leo's dad, have you lost your mind? How dare you commit an assault inside the school? Guards, grab him. If anything happens to Paisley's father, you'll never be able to pay for the damages. The guards began to close in on me. Marcus held the glass shard, a twisted, arrogant smirk growing on his face, scared. Now it's too late. I'm going to make you and your son crawl on the floor and lick my boots. I shielded Leo behind me, staring at Marcus with a gaze so cold it could have turned the room to ice. I ignored the guards and knelt down to check on Leo's hand. There was a deep, dark boot print on his fair skin. The area was already starting to swell and turn a sickening shade of purple. Leo was shaking with pain, biting his lip to keep from crying. His eyes filled with pure terror. The sight felt like a knife being driven into my heart. I could barely breathe from the pain of seeing him like this. Stood up and swept my gaze across the teacher and the guards. Try to touch me and see what happens. My voice wasn't loud, but the sheer authority in it made the guards freeze. In their tracks, I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. I'm at Sunnyside Bilingual Kindergarten.
My son has been assaulted.
And I'm currently being threatened with a weapon. After hanging up, I looked at the still smirking Marcus. What did you say your wife's name was? Scarlett Thorne from Apex Investments. Marcus thought I was finally showing fear. He lifted his chin and waved a glass shard in front of my face.
What?
Finally realizing how much trouble you're in. My wife has connections in this city that a peasant like you couldn't even dream of. Get on your knees and beg for mercy right now. Maybe I'll consider letting you live. Miss Miller chimed in with a sneer. Leo's dad. I warned you to know your place. You can't afford to offend someone like Paisley's father. Now that you've caused this mess, Leo is expelled. Good luck ever finding a job in the city again. I looked at these two pathetic clowns and let out a dark laugh.
I didn't argue with them. I just called my assistant again.
Get everything we have on Apex Investments. Tell the legal department to prepare a criminal lawsuit. Also, tell the head of Apex to get his ass down to Sunnyside Kindergarten. In 10 minutes now. Marcus burst into a fit of exaggerated laughter. The moment the words left my mouth.
Ha ha ha.
Look at this guy acting like a big shot. You're going to tell the head of Apex what to do. Who do you think you are? You've watched too many movies. The other teachers and parents nearby whispered and smirked, clearly thinking I was bluffing to save face. A few minutes later, the wail of sirens reached the school gates. 2 police officers rushed into the classroom. They frowned at the mess. And the sight of Marcus holding a shard of glass. Who called the police? What's going on here? The moment Marcus saw the officers, he dropped the glass. He clutched his swollen face and burst into fake tears.
His act changing in a heartbeat.
Officers, thank God you're here. This lunatic attacked me the second he walked in. Look at my face. He nearly knocked my teeth out. He even tried to hurt my daughter. You have to arrest him. The older of the 2 officers, a burly man with silver hair at his temples, held up a hand. Quiet, both of you. He looked at Marcus, who was giving an Oscar-worthy performance of a battered victim, then looked at me, standing calmly with my injured child shielded behind my legs. Put your hands where I can see them, the officer said to me, though his hand rested casually on his belt, not drawing his weapon. He had likely seen enough domestic disputes and schoolyard brawls to know when someone was actually a
threat.
Officers, I said, my voice eerily calm, a stark contrast to Marcus's hysterical weeping. My name is Julian Vance. This man just force-fed my son, who has severe, documented food allergies, a piece of bread, and then stomped on his hand with a leather boot. When I intervened to protect my child, he picked up a shard of glass and threatened to kill me. I am the one who called you. Marcus pointed a shaking finger at me. He's lying. Look at my face. He ambushed
me.
Miss Miller, tell them. Miss Miller stepped forward, smoothing her skirt, her face a mask of practiced
concern.
Officers, it's true. Mr. Vance has been highly uncooperative and aggressive since yesterday. Paisley's father was just trying to mediate a sharing exercise between the children. Mr. Vance burst in like a madman and attacked him unprovoked. I saw the whole thing. I stared at her. The sheer audacity of the lie didn't enrage me. It simply finalized her place on my list. A sharing exercise? I repeated softly. I stepped aside just enough to reveal.
Leo.
He was trembling, gasping softly, his lips swelling slightly from the contact with the cheap gluten and dairy in the bread. But worse was his left
hand.
The knuckles were bruised a violent, ugly black, the skin scraped raw, where the heavy tread of Marcus's boot had crushed it against the floor. The younger officer's eyes widened when he saw the child. His demeanor shifted. Instantly. "Get paramedics here now," he barked into his shoulder radio.
He
Knelt in front of Leo. "Hey there, buddy. Can I see your hand?" Leo whimpered and buried his face in my pant leg. I knelt down with him, gently, cradling his wrist. "It's okay, Leo. These men are here to help." The older officer turned a hard glare on Marcus. "You're telling me that hand injury is from a sharing exercise?" Marcus paled slightly, his eyes darting to Miss Miller. The kid tripped. He was throwing a tantrum and fell on his own hand. I was trying to help him up. "Fascinating." A smooth, authoritative voice echoed from the doorway. Everyone turned. Standing in the threshold was my assistant, Elias.
He was
impeccably dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, holding a sleek matte black
tablet.
Flanking him were two men in dark suits, my personal security, and a man carrying a medical bag. "Mr. Vance," Elias said, stepping into the room with absolute command. He didn't even glance at the police or Marcus. "Dr. Aris is here for Leo, and the legal team is waiting outside." "Dr. Aris, check his airway first," I commanded, stepping back to let my private physician take over. I turned to Elias. "Do you have it?" "Of course, sir." Elias walked directly to the older police officer. "Officer, my name is Elias Thorne. I represent Mr. Vance. I took the liberty of contacting the school's security contractor. The camera in the upper corner of this classroom is a closed-circuit system, recording 24/7. Miss Miller's face drained of all color. You can't just access those. That's a breach of privacy." "A subpoena was digitally authorized by Judge Harlan 3 minutes ago," Elias lied flawlessly, tapping the screen. "In reality, I own the security firm that monitored the school. Officer, I believe this will clear up any confusion regarding who attacked whom." Elias handed the tablet to the officer. The younger cop leaned over his partner's shoulder. I watched their faces. I watched as the officer's expressions went from professional neutrality to absolute, hardened disgust. The tablet played the footage from exactly 3 minutes prior. Though there was no audio, the high-definition video showed everything with brutal clarity. Leo retrieving his sketchbook, Paisley ripping it apart, Marcus grabbing a terrified 5-year-old by the jaw, shoving food into his mouth, and then, as Leo struggled, bringing his heavy boot down directly onto the boy's fragile hand. It showed me rushing. In a second later, delivering the slap that sent Marcus flying. The older officer handed the tablet back to Elias. He didn't say a word. He just unclipped his handcuffs, walked directly over to Marcus, grabbed his arm, and slammed him face first into the whiteboard. "Hey, what are you doing?" Marcus shrieked, his cheeks squeaking against the dry erase board. "I'm the victim. Look at my teeth." "Marcus Thorne, you are under arrest for aggravated assault on a minor child, endangerment, and assault with a deadly weapon," the officer recited, his voice dripping with venom as he ratcheted the steel cuffs tightly around Marcus's wrists. "You have the right to remain silent. I highly suggest you use it, you piece of garbage."
No.
"No, you don't understand," Marcus thrashed wildly. "My wife is Scarlett
Thorne.
She's the regional director of Apex Investments. She'll have your badges. For this, she'll ruin you." "Let her try," the younger officer muttered, stepping forward to read him the rest of his rights. Miss Miller was backing away toward the door, her hands shaking. "Officers, I must have seen it wrong. It happened so fast. I didn't realize." "Save it, Miss Miller," I said. My voice sliced through the room like a scalpel. "You lied to the police to protect a man who tortured a child in your classroom. You are an accessory." "Elias?" "Already filed, sir," Elias said calmly. "The civil suit against Miss Miller, personally, and the kindergarten at large has been submitted to the district
court.
Furthermore, the Board of Education has been notified of her complicity in child abuse." Miss Miller's legs gave out. She collapsed into one of the tiny plastic kindergarten chairs, burying her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "Daddy," a small voice rasped. I turned instantly, my coldness evaporating.
Dr.
Aris had administered an antihistamine injection and was carefully wrapping Leo's hand in a temporary splint. His airway is clear, Julian, the doctor said softly. The swelling in his throat is subsiding, but the hand, 2 fractured metacarpals. He's going to need an X-ray and a proper cast. He's in a lot of pain. I knelt down and kissed Leo's sweaty forehead. I've got you, buddy.
You're safe.
Daddy is right here. My sketchbook, Leo whispered, fat tears rolling down his cheeks as he looked at the shredded paper on the floor. I'll buy you 1,000 sketchbooks. I promised, my heart breaking. We'll get the best ones in the world. Just as Dr. Eris picked Leo up to carry him to the waiting SUV, the sound of sharp, frantic high heels echoed down the hallway. Marcus, where is my husband? A woman burst into the classroom. She was dressed to the nines in a tailored crimson power suit, a designer Birkin bag clutched in her hand. Her face was flushed with anger. Scarlett Thorne had arrived. She took one look at Marcus, who was currently being dragged toward the door by the police, and let out a shriek. What is the meaning of this? Unhand him.
Do
you know who I am? Ma'am, step back, the older officer warned. Your husband is under arrest for assaulting a child. Assaulting a child? Don't be ridiculous. Scarlett scoffed, her eyes sweeping the room until they landed on me. She sneered, sizing up my plain cashmere sweater and unbranded jeans. Are you the idiot who started this? You think you can extort us? We have lawyers on retainer that cost more than your life, you pathetic loser. I'll see you for defamation, emotional distress, and assault.
Bye.
The time I'm done with you, you and your little brat will be living on the street.
I didn't blink.
I didn't raise my voice. I just checked my watch. 10 minutes. Exactly. Scarlett frowned. What are you talking about, you psycho? Heavy, frantic footsteps echoed from the hallway, far less elegant than Scarlett's. A moment later, a man in his late 50s, red-faced and panting heavily, practically collided with the doorframe. He was sweating profusely, his tie askew. Scarlett's arrogant expression melted into a bright, sycophantic smile. Mr. Vance. Oh my God. You didn't have to come down here yourself. I told the office. It was just a minor personal issue. But since you're here, could you call the firm's legal team? This lunatic is trying to have Marcus arrested over a schoolyard misunderstanding. Richard Vance, the CEO of Apex Investments, didn't even look at her. He shoved past Scarlett so violently she stumbled into a desk. He walked directly toward me, his chest heaving, his face pale with absolute terror. When he was 3 feet away, he stopped, swallowed hard, and bowed his head at a deep, precise angle. Mr. Sterling, Richard said, his voice trembling. I came the exact second Mr. Elias called. I have no words. I am so deeply, profoundly sorry. The entire room went dead silent. Even Marcus, who was halfway out the door in handcuffs, stopped struggling. Scarlett let out a nervous, breathy laugh. Mr. Vance? What are you doing?
Why?
Are you calling him Mr. Sterling? His name in the school registry is Julian. Richard slowly turned his head to look at Scarlett. The look in his eyes was one of a man looking at a walking corpse. His name, Richard hissed, his voice vibrating with rage, is Julian Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Global Holdings, the majority shareholder of Apex Investments. He owns 70% of the firm you work for, Scarlett.
He is my boss.
He is your boss. Scarlett's Birkin bag slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a dull thud. Her jaw went slack, her eyes darting between Richard and me in sheer, unadulterated horror. The color drained from Marcus's bruised face. Sterling, he whispered. Like the Sterling Tower? The banks. Julian Sterling. Miss Miller choked out from her chair, her eyes rolling to the back of her head before she slumped over in a dead faint. Nobody moved to help her. I stepped forward, closing the distance between myself and Scarlett.
She
physically shrank back, trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. You were saying? I asked softly. Something about lawyers on retainer? Something about putting me and my son on the street. Mr. Sterling. I didn't know, Scarlett stammered, tears instantly welling. In her eyes, the arrogant executive from 30 seconds ago was entirely gone. My husband, Marcus, is an idiot. He's impulsive. Please, we didn't know who you were. That is exactly the problem, I replied, my tone devoid of any empathy. If I were just a struggling single father, as your husband assumed, you would have crushed me. You would have used your wealth and influence to protect a man who abused a child, and you would have destroyed an innocent family just to save
face.
You only regret this because of my bank account. I looked over her head at Richard. Richard. Yes, Mr. Sterling. Scarlett Thorne is terminated, effective immediately. I ordered. Void her. Stock options under the morality clause. Strip her severance. I want a full forensic audit of her department dating back 5 years. If she expends so much as a cup of coffee improperly, I want her prosecuted for embezzlement. And issue a black notice to the industry. If any financial firm on the Eastern Seaboard hires her, Sterling Global will pull all assets from their institution. Scarlett collapsed to her knees.
No.
No, please. I worked my whole life for that position. We have a mortgage. We have car payments. You can't do this. I just did, I said, stepping around her. I walked over to where Marcus was being held by the police. He was hyperventilating, crying openly now, a pathetic stream of snot and blood running down his chin. As for you, I said to him, you wanted to teach my son about grit. Now you're going to learn about consequences. My legal team will ensure the prosecutor pushes for the maximum sentence. And when you are sitting in a cell, penniless, wifeless, and ruined, I want you to remember the taste of that cheap bread you tried to shove down my son's throat. I nodded to the officers. Take him away. Julian. Mr. Sterling, please. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Marcus screamed as they dragged him down the hallway. His voice echoed, growing fainter until the heavy school doors slammed shut. I turned back to the classroom. Scarlett was still on the floor, weeping hysterically, while Richard stood awkwardly, sweating through his suit. Elias handed me a wet wipe, and I carefully cleaned my hands. Elias, where's the principal? I asked. Waiting in your car, sir. Along with the deed to the school, Elias replied. Without missing a beat. The previous owner was very eager to sell once I explained the liability they were facing. Good. Have Miss Miller's belongings boxed up. When she wakes up, throw her out. The school is closed for a complete restructuring. Every teacher will be re-interviewed and the curriculum will be overhauled. I didn't wait for a response. I turned my back on the wreckage of the Thorne family and walked out of the classroom, the sounds of Scarlett's sobbing fading behind me. When I reached my heavily armored Maybach idling in the school's circular driveway, Dr. Eris was just finishing settling Leo into his car seat. Leo's hand was neatly splinted, and the swelling in his face was almost entirely gone. I climbed into the back seat beside him. Leo looked up at me with big, tired eyes. Daddy? Are we going home? Yes, buddy, I said, my voice softening entirely, leaving the ruthless billionaire behind and returning to the only role that actually mattered. We're going home. And guess what? What? He sniffled. I decided I'm going to take a few weeks off work. We're going to fly out to the farm in Montana. The one with the horses. You can draw all the horses you want, and Chef Pierre is going to make you your favorite Wagyu sliders every single day. A tiny, fragile smile broke through the tears on Leo's face. He leaned his head against my arm, careful of his injured hand. I love you, Daddy. I wrapped my arm around him, kissing the top of his head as the Maybach pulled away from the school. I love you too, Leo. More than anything. 6 months later, the city had completely forgotten about the Thornes. Marcus Thorne had pleaded guilty to avoid a trial that my lawyers promised would be a media spectacle. He was currently serving 7 years in a mid-state penitentiary. Without his wife's income, his legal defense had been handled by an overworked public defender who didn't stand a chance against my legal armada. Scarlett Thorne's life had unraveled with terrifying speed. Blacklisted from the financial sector and drowning in debt from their lavish lifestyle, the bank foreclosed on their McMansion. She was last seen working as a shift manager at a discount retail store 2 states over, entirely estranged from the high society circles she once terrorized. Paisley had been sent to live with her grandparents in the Midwest. I harbored no ill will toward the child. She was merely a product of horrific parenting, and silently hoped her grandparents would teach her the kindness her parents lacked. Miss Miller lost her teaching license after the Board of Education reviewed the security footage. No private or public school would touch her. As for Leo, he was thriving. I hadn't just restructured Sunnyside Kindergarten, I completely rebuilt it. I hired top-tier pediatricians, nutritionists, and educators. The new environment was built on genuine empathy, not elitist posturing. The cafeteria was entirely allergen-free, serving farm-to-table meals that put Michelin-starred restaurants.
To shame.
It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I arrived to pick him up. I was still dressed in my casual sweater and jeans, preferring the low-key comfort. As I walked into the courtyard, Leo came running toward me, his sketchbook clutched in a perfectly healed left hand. He wasn't alone. 2 other boys were running with him, laughing as they chased a stray leaf blowing across the grass.
Daddy, look.
Leo held up his sketchbook. It was a drawing of a horse, vibrant and full of life. Oliver and Sam helped me color it. I knelt down, inspecting the masterpiece with the gravity of an art critic. It's incredible, Leo. You guys did a great job. I looked up and smiled at the 2 boys, who beamed back proudly. There was no fear in Leo's eyes anymore. No isolation. Just the bright, unfiltered joy of a child who knew he was safe. I took his hand, holding it gently but firmly. Come on, I said. Let's go home.